Hello, I'm Crafty Patty and thanks for coming back. If you've watched my channel, you'll know that a while back I made these little cute little thumb finger pot holders meant for the top of the stove. These aren't meant for the oven. And these work great when you don't want a big bulky oven mitt. And I will leave a link for this video in the description box below. And also all the supplies I've used, it will be in the description box below for you as well. So today I've made some shorty oven mitts. So these will be plenty sufficient for in the oven. And I'm going to show you how to make your own pattern so you can make many more of these for all those people out there, these sewers that like to make your gifts way ahead of time. Now you'll have lots of time to make lots of oven mitts as gifts. They make wonderful gifts. And these particular oven mitts look very professional and look like they've been store-bought, but you're going to make them. So keep watching and I'm going to show you step by step. So here we go. Now I don't have a website, so I can't give you a PDF file of these printouts, so you can make these yourself, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that. You're going to need 3 pieces. This part here is the inside of your mitt, and then we have the thumb pocket and we have the finger pocket. So let's start with showing you how to make this egg-shaped oval to fit the inside here. And I like to use my recycled computer paper that I've used. And we'll use this for our pattern piece. This is just basically an 8.5 by 11 piece of computer paper. So the first thing you're going to do is we're going to fold this exactly in half lengthways. And I'm going to bring the 2 ends together. You want to make sure that your fold is on the bottom and your folds are on the left. This is your open side on your right, your open side on the top. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to make this a little bit smaller than the actual piece of computer paper. We're going to be taking off 3/4 of an inch here and 3/4 of an inch in. Now I'm going to be talking in inches just to let you know that, but I will have the equivalents in centimeters on the screen if you want to check there. So just using my omigrid ruler, and of course if you don't have quilting tools like this, then I would advise that you have a look and pick some up. I've got some links in the description box below if you want to have a look. But you can use just a basic ruler and a pencil if you want to. So having that piece of paper up on your grid line, if you've got this for your guide, and you're going to measure down 3/4 of an inch and make a line. You also want to come in 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to move my paper over so it's on the grid line here. And again, finding my 3/4 inch mark on my omigrid ruler and coming in and marking at 3/4 of an inch. Now, if you're really good at freehanding an actual egg shape, by all means you can do that, but if you're not comfortable with that, I'm going to show you how to make coordinate lines so you can join the dots and get a really nice egg shaping. So let's start by matching up our corner with our grid line again so we can do easy measurements. And so I want to measure 1 inch over and 1 inch down, and my first coordinate will be right here. I'm going to make a dot. I'll make it a little bigger just so you can see that on camera. That's our first one. Our next one is going to be 1 3/4 inches over. So I'm just putting my ruler so it's at 1 3/4. And we want to measure down 1.5 inches. So here's 1 and here's my half. Don't worry about remembering these. I will write them up on the screen for you. That's our second one. Our next one is going to be at 2.5, so over 2, 1, 2.5, and we're going to go down 2.25. So 1, 2, and 1/4. Our next one is 3 inches over and 3.25 down. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3.25 inches down. And our last one is 3.25. So 1, 2, 3.25 over, and we want to measure 4 inches down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's our last one. Now we've got a nice little curve that we can follow here, and you want it squared off a little bit at the top here. So I'm just bringing that around, and I'm just roughing it in. And then just take your scissors and cut out that shape. And there we have our egg shape. So this will be used to help make our other 2 pattern pieces as well. And here's your measurements for your egg shaping: 7 inches across at your widest point and 9.5 inches in length. Now for pattern piece number 2, again folding in half lengthways, but this time we only want this piece to be 7.5 inches long. So I'll just move it over to my grid here so I can easily mark over 7.5 inches, and then we'll just draw a line and then we'll cut that off. And so now I want to measure in 3/4 of an inch, and this is on my open edge. This is my fold. Measuring in 3/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to draw a line. Now grab your egg shape that you made. We're going to fold this in half again. We're going to place that and match it up to the corner, this corner to this corner, and this straight edge to this straight edge. And now we can use this to make our guide and just trace that on the paper around your egg shape. This line we don't have to worry about. We're now cutting out the shaping here. Pattern piece number 2, all your pieces will be 7 inches across, and this one for your thumb pocket is 7.5 inches in length. And pattern piece number 3, same thing, fold it in half, and we're going to measure at 8 3/4 and draw a line. And again, like before, we're going to measure in 3/4 of an inch and draw your line. And once again, using your egg shape, we're going to place that on, matching up your corner, matching up your straight edges, and just trace your egg shaping for your last pattern piece. And again, don't worry about this, and we're going to cut and make our last piece. And for pattern piece number 3, for the finger pocket, again 7 inches for your width, and your length is 8 3/4 inches. And there's your 3 pattern pieces, and now we can start making our oven mitts. For fabrics, you can use absolutely anything. When I go to my fabric store, I look for bargains because I don't like spending a lot of money on fabric. These 3 pieces of fabric right here, that I've used are actually outdoor fabric. It's a very heavy fabric, and I just like the feel for it for an oven mitt. And then, of course, for the lining, I used quilting cotton, something nice and soft for the inside. You could also use tablecloth material, or you can put the whole thing in quilting cottons or whatever you want. And I found this fabric as well for the same really good price, so I couldn't resist this because I'm a beach girl. So I had to make some beach ones. So crab and seashells, and inside I have that lovely tealy blue, and then inside we've got that darling little seahorse. So those I think turned out adorable. And I also did one in more of a, I would say, an African print. And inside I used just an unbleached cotton for this one to make it more natural looking. So to make your oven mitts really pop, take some time and find that perfect piece of fabric, and then you can come up with some really beautiful looking oven mitts. Now this piece of material probably only cost me $1.50. It was so cheap and I loved it. But it does have a pattern. So this is when you want to try to decide where you want your pattern pieces to fall. So I've tried to grab this turtle here. So I've used the center of my line here. So I've got the turtle centered on this piece here. And the same for this one. I've grabbed an orange turtle. And on this one, I thought for the center, I would just grab all three. And we'll go the other way. So that's how I'm going to place my pattern pieces. Now you can choose to pin these on and then cut them out with a pair of good sewing scissors. Or if you're comfortable with the rotary cutter, then by all means you can use a rotary cutter as well. And then you'll be wanting to look for a complementary fabric that is going to be for the lining. You can choose a solid, you can choose a pattern. On this particular one, I have a really pretty blue batik lining. And then what you're doing here will basically tell you what type of color binding you might want as well. So you want to kind of think ahead a little bit on that. This binding here will look nice on the outside as well as on the inside for this or this. I could choose either this one or this one. And I'm thinking, why not? Let's go wild and crazy, and I'm going to use this really pretty one here. And to save yourself some time, I have folded my fabric in half because I'm making 2 oven mitts. So we'll cut out 2 at the same time. And so I'm going to pin these in place. And when you're using pattern pieces like this, you want to make sure you actually are trying to follow the grain of the fabric, whether you place it this way on the grain or whether you place it this way on the grain, as long as you're not going like so. Just keep it on the grain of the fabric. Because this batik fabric is a little bit more on the expensive side, there's no reason to waste any of it. So I had it sitting in the middle here. I've got excess, so I'm just going to bring this over. And there we go. Now I'm not wasting any fabric. Well, a little bit, but not as much as I was before. And next you want to cut out some cotton batting. You can use polyester, but I do prefer the nice soft cotton. It's got a better feel to it. And it's just cotton. I like cotton if I can use it. Now this one, it happens to be on the thinner side. So I'm choosing to use 2 layers of this cotton batting. And again, I have folded this in half so I can cut 2 pieces at once. And the next item you'll be needing is 1 piece of Insul-Bright. Now, there's different companies and they all call their product something different. It can be Thinsulate, there's many different names, but it's all basically the same thing. It's there to protect your hands from the heat. I'm leaving this up so you can read through this little paragraph here, and it tells you all about the product and how it works. And feel free, if you don't want to read that, to just zoom ahead and get to the next step. This is what the Insul-Bright looks like. There's basically a covering on the outside of both sides. And then, of course, there's the metallicized film inside, and that's what will protect you. We're using it to protect our hand when we place it into the oven. So we only need the one piece for this section here. Now this is a personal choice. You don't have to do this, but I just think it makes your oven mitt look that much more professional. So I've just reversed this to the wrong side, and I've done some quilting on all of my pieces. So this is the inside of the mitt. Now you can choose to do like a grid line like I've done here and draw on with a fabric pen that will come out and draw on your lines, and then you've got a guide for where you want to sew. Now if you're going to do this type of sewing, I would start in the middle, go this way, then go this way, and then reverse it and start here and go up, reverse and go this way, and then you can sew on all your lines. Or if you have a machine that you have the capability of doing free motion quilting, then by all means do that as well. And that's what I've done here, just having fun with some stippling. And I did that on this piece and on the back. So if you want to do this quilting, then you will need some interfacing. You need something to hold your 3 layers together. This is when you're going to have your lining, do 2 pieces of batting, and then it'll be a piece of the interfacing, because you need something on the back when you're doing that type of quilting. So a lightweight to a medium weight. This particular one that I've got is actually an iron-on, because you can feel the little bumps on this side. That means that that will glue onto your fabric. You don't have to have iron-on. That's just what I have, so I'm using it. And if you are using the iron-on interfacing, then just make sure that you use the part that is the iron-on towards the actual fabric, which in this case is the cotton batting. And this side is just the smooth side. So if you've decided to do the quilting like I have, then you'll need to cut out a piece of interfacing for each of the 3 pieces, and then of course for each oven mitt. So you can cut 2 at once, and then you've got them done for both your oven mitts. And one of the last items you'll be needing is double folded extra wide bias tape. It's nice and wide and it's double folded, so you can easily bring this over the top of your oven mitt. And then of course I would choose the same color of thread color that I have for my binding and use that throughout the whole sewing process. You'll be needing enough bias tape to go over your front and back. So butting up on this edge, and we'll have some overhang. So I'm going to cut this one at 16 inches. And we also want a little piece for our little hanger. And that I'm going to cut at 4 inches. Now we do need, of course, that for both oven mitts, so we'll do that again. Here's a review of all the pieces that you need. This is our lining, 2 batting, interfacing, and our outer fabric. This is the thumb pocket. Here's the finger pocket, the same. Lining, 2 batting, interfacing, and our outer fabric. And then for our egg shaping, we have the lining, 2 batting, interfacing, and our Insul-Bright and our outer fabric. And you'll want to do this exactly the same for your other oven mitt. So our next step is to do our quilting. And this is what I've done on the egg shaping. I've done the stippling, free motion, and also on this pocket here. I'm now going to show you how to do that. On the machine I have a FAF, so I have the capability of doing this. If you don't want to do the quilting, then feel free to skip ahead to the next step. To do the free motion stippling, I am using my FAF Quilt Expression 720. My setting is at 111, and I'm using the free motion, and I've chosen the Sensormatic free motion option. And I've added my free motion foot as well as the plate that has the single hole for free motion quilting. And the sandwich layer that you want is your lining fabric right sides up, your two batting, and then I have my interfacing, and this happens to be fusible, so I've got the fusible side facing toward the cotton batting and the soft smooth side on the outside. I like to use magic clips because it doesn't pucker the fabric as much when I'm trying to sew it, and they're just quick to pull off when I don't want them or if they're getting in the way. Once I've clipped on this side, I then go to the back side and make sure that it hasn't puckered, and I just smooth it up and make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Sometimes it puckers on the back. Now this isn't a true sewing instruction because this is a new machine for me, so I'm still learning how to use it. But this is the general idea on how you can do free motion stippling. So to get started, we're just going to set it by leaving it in the same place so it sets the thread. And then I can start moving it just by pulling the fabric any way I want to. Doesn't matter how I move it. You can move it any way you want for your design. Once you get comfortable with it, of course, you can go faster. And you can make absolutely any design you want. It's really quite fun. So I won't keep going and bore you to tears with this because you got the idea. So I'll continue on and do the rest of the stippling, and then we will carry on with the rest of our oven mitt. And there's my finished quilted piece with the free motion stippling. Fun, huh? If you have chosen fabric that tends to ravel fairly easily, then I would suggest you take it to your sewing machine and do a zigzag. Or if you've got a sergie, that would work too. But just zigzag just to reinforce those seams all the way around your pieces. The way this oven mitt is designed, you will see the seam on the inside here. Now, because you can see the seam, what we need to do is make it nice and tidy. Just turn the oven mitt inside out so you can see. So on both the finger and the thumb pocket, you can see I've overlocked along this edge about 3.5 inches on both of them. And that will just make it nice and clean when you look inside the mitt, and it won't unravel as well. So again, use your overlock or a zigzag. For the Fav quilt expression, my setting is 1 to 9, and I'm using a width of 6 and a length of 7.5. And that's what the overlocking stitch looks like. And the order that you're placing your pieces together on is your lining is wrong side up. Now, if you've quilted, it'll look like this. If you haven't quilted, that's okay. You'll have your lining wrong side facing up, your two pieces of cotton batting, and I've got the interfacing because I did the quilting, and then your top piece is right side up. So I'm just going to put in a couple of magic clips just on the top here to hold it in place. And I'll do one at the bottom as well. And then I'll take my tape measure and I'm going to measure down 3.5 inches and place a pin just so it gives me a guide on where I'm going to stop my overlocking stitch. I don't need to go all the way around. And do the same for the other side. And this time I'm going to take it to the back side and come down to my 3.5 inch mark. Now we're ready to add our bias tape to the top of our finger and thumb pocket. We're going to flush up this side, and then this side will overhang. So just open up your double wide bias tape and just pop the first pocket inside, fold it down, and we're going to add our lovely magic clips because they do a good job without buckling the bias tape, so it helps to use them. And then when we get to the middle here, we want to make sure that we butt up both of these together. So bring in the other one and make sure they're nice and snug together. And then we'll just use one of the larger clips here to make sure those stay together and carry on. But you don't want to make it so snug that you're pulling on the bias tape, and when you go to sew it, you're going to miss on the other side. So what I like to do is just flip this over and make sure, like this one here, it did not catch. And make sure that that crease is definitely right on the top. You don't want it one way or the other, otherwise you're not going to catch your other side. And away we go, stitching close to your edge here. And when we get to the end here, I'm just going to continue on and sew this bias tape. And then just inspect that you've caught everything on the one side and turn it over and make sure that you've caught everything on the back side as well. To ease in putting this whole oven mitt together now, it's much easier if you go around and you baste all your layers together first. It prevents any puckering and it holds everything together so much easier. So again, your little sandwich is, it would be your lining, wrong side facing up, your two batting, and then your interfacing, of course, if you did the quilting. If not, you won't have the interfacing. Then you've got your Insul-Bright, and then you've got your outer fabric right side up. So go around and use your magic clips to pin this all in place, and then go around with a large basting stitch, and don't back stitch and set your one stitch in, because then if you want to take that basting stitch out, then you can. And by the way, I did set my basting stitch at 6, so a nice long basting stitch. Now I have my zigzag stitch in here that I did put on this fabric because it was fraying quite a bit. If you don't have the zigzag, then just go in about 1/4 inch with your basting stitch. And just pulling out all your fabric so it stays nice and smooth. And I'd also baste the little pockets that you sewed together with the bias tape, the part that you haven't sewed down here. Just baste these 3 together along your curves on both of them as well, and that will help in the aid of putting them together. Next step, with your outer fabric facing you, we're going to bring our left mitt over to our right, and we're going to then bring our bias tape nice and snugly over the other side. And then you can cut off some excess of that bias tape. In next step, we are going to be adding the egg shaping to the inside so it joins our finger and thumb pocket. So fold your egg shape in half. You're placing, of course, right sides to right sides. Let's pop that egg shaping right inside here, matching up this edge to this edge. The magic clips to hold it in place. And once you've got some clips up on the top here, then what you're doing is you're just squeezing it up. So you're making sure that this is coming down far enough that when you fold these two up, these are matched together. So bring this up a little bit here and just place a clip on the top here. And one further down on each side. So you want to make sure you're sewing up the same distance on this side as you are on this side. So right here where I've got my fold, I'm measuring from pushing in my gauge. I find this works easier because it's stiff than a measuring tape. And from here to my bias tape, I have 3.5 inches. So I'm going to really push this up, and I know that where my finger is touching this metal here, I know that's where I have to sew up to. So I'm just going to grab my fabric pin and make a little dot. So I know I'm sewing up to that point right there. Same on this side. To make it easier to sew down to your dot, we're going to open this up and just reverse this little fold here for now. So this comes out like so, so you can get right down to your dot here with no problem at all. So I'm going to start on this side here, starting at my first dot. Finding where I've made my mark with my fabric pin. And I'll start sewing there and sew all around to my other marking, my other dot. We have sewn this portion of our egg shaping, and now let's let this fold back in, and we're now going to be sewing this portion of the egg shaping. So let's flip this to the other side like so. Now, being that you've got a lot of bulk in here, presser foots don't like to sit up high onto a big bulky portion of a lot of fabric. So we're going to start sewing here and sew up to our dot, and come here and sew up to our dot. You're going to leave this tucked in and just sew up to that dot. We've now sewn around both sides of our egg shaping, and the last thing we need to do is to sew up our sides. But before we do that, we need to grab our little 4-inch piece of bias tape we cut for our handle, fold it in half, and we're going to open this up, and we want to place it so it's sitting right up close and parallel to our top binding here. So right in there, so it's nice and even, so you can just see the ends of the bias tape even with your seam. So once you've got that in there, we're ready to sew down again, and we're going to go all the way down and match up to where we ended our sewing right here. So right up to the top of your seam binding, again at about 3/8 of an inch. And when you get close, you can see where your last stitching was, you can just really push that down and try to get as close to that as you can. And then lock it in and cut it off. And then we're going to flip it over and do the other side. Now we're going to come over a little bit and sew it 3/8 inch and then match up to our last sewing reed here. And again, just pushing this down because there's a lot of bulk in there, matching up to your other sewing line. Lock it in. And then you can go around and cut off a bit of the bulk. And then you're ready to reverse it to the right side. Just putting in your finger, push it in so you can grab it and pull it out to the other side. And grab your other piece, push it in, and grab that out. And then just come in with your thumb and fingers, push it all out so it's nice and smooth. And if you got up nice and close on each sewing line to your join here, you'll have a fairly nice join. And don't fret if you see a little bit of the threads pulling apart a little bit. That's just how this oven mitt is designed, and it will be just fine. There you go. You've made your first shorty oven mitt, and now let's make another one to match. And then just a note, when you're doing your second mitt, I had placed my handle on this side, and now for the second mitt, I'm going to place it on the opposite side, just so when you're hanging them, you can hang them so they're both sitting the same way. And here's the completed pair of shorty oven mitts. There's tops, and there's the bottoms. Hello. Well, Mr. Turtle, I think I'm ready to go make some yummy muffins. What do you think? Oh yeah, let's go, yay!